Greg Fowler. I'm the founder of Lionbolt Media and host of Real Estate Titans. I do have my very good friend Eric Forney here today to drop incredible information. As stated into the title, 7 AI hacks guaranteed to save you 6 hours a week, and the biggest mistakes that agents make with AI. Eric, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, my friend, to give your wealth of knowledge and sharing with today through LCA. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, man, it's good to be here. Hope everybody gets a ton of value, and we will mix this up. This will not be the boring AI conversation that you can get on the rest of the internet. How about that?
You know, I love that you stated that, because there is, I don't want to say there's some maybe overload into the AI conversation, and there's so many individuals that are going out there and doing the best that they can to kind of put the stab at it or spin for real estate professionals directly. But Eric, you do this to the highest of levels. You really understand the depth behind it, not just from a technology standpoint, but directive to implementation at the highest of levels. Anybody that doesn't know you, I want to lead into who this man is that we're having this conversation. But before we do that, I do want to encourage anybody who's tuning in with us live, if you've got any thoughts, any questions, any burning, thought process that comes in as Eric's going down the line through these different hacks and scenarios for real estate, please jump in. I'll be monitoring those questions. If there's nothing throughout, we'll wait to the end for a Q&A, but just know that we're here for you. I'm monitoring that too. So Eric, before we dive in, anybody who's lived under a rock, who doesn't know who Eric Forney is, as I like to say, in the shaping that you've done in the industry to the true highest of levels, what's your background, Eric? Who are you? Where are you from? What have you done? Why are you here? You know,
well, I'll save the long explanation here, but and just kind of keep it to real estate. So got into real estate full time in 2015. I got out of selling paint I was working at Sherwin-Williams, and for the millennials, Sherwin-Williams is a paint company, and so I was working at Sherwin-Williams, and there's nothing that single chicks dig more than a guy who sells paint. And so I wanted to transition out of selling paint. I got into real estate, and the reality was I actually never wanted to sell houses.
Mm.
I only wanted to flip real estate and then have a better experience than I had working with real estate agents. And what I found was that when I went out and delivered a better experience, people referred me and my phone rang more. And so that year, my first year full time, sold 76 houses as an agent, sold 130. The next year, we started a team. We became the #1 team in Indiana for Keller Williams. We've maintained that spot until this day. Last year, we put 509 houses in contract and run a. I have a few jobs now. One of them is the vice president of industry at Livian. Livian's a 18-month-old company that was co-founded with Gary Keller and Adam Hergenrother. So we are the #5 team in the country as far as total closed units are concerned. And we're developing an ecosystem for the most successful real estate teams, because the entire industry goes out and works on solving for the 1.6 million real estate agents. Very few people are solving for the 1%. That's our customer.
Eric, I want to echo that quick kind of intro and setting the stage for everybody who they're learning from today on LCA. #5 in the country, 509 transactions last year. You're a true practitioner in the real estate space, and no disrespect to anybody who's teaching AI, but you have the directive to look at technology and apply it to the real world real estate professional today. There's no sales pitch here, right? There's no product that you're selling.
I have
There's
nothing to sell you. Yeah.
That is not it.
Yeah.
So everybody, you're welcome for jumping on here today with LCA, because Eric is going to drop the bombs and the knowledge, the takeaways. There's also a resource. There's going to be a free downloadable at the end. So you follow along as Eric's going through. There's something that you can take away and truly apply right away. This is not something that leaves you in the dark or gets you excited and then where do I start? So Eric, let's dive into it if you're all right with that, talking
Absolutely.
about the 7 hacks. I mean, in AI in general, let's just jump in.
Perfect. Yeah. So, I love the transition. One of the things that you mentioned was the practitioner component. I sleep with a real estate agent, and she is my wife. And
explain that, Eric.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
I sit next to a transaction coordinator at the office every day, and at the end of the day, I consult, coach, and lead some of the top real estate teams across the country. And so I'm taking this approach of trying to think about how do we make agents productive at scale so that they can be more profitable and more impactful. And one of the ways that I've kind of arrived at trying to help agents scale their business is by shaving off time so that agents can, of course, spend time doing the things that they most love to do and are the best return on investment for them. So I wanted to talk then a little bit about what are those mistakes, and then we'll get to the ways that you can benefit from using artificial intelligence. And then if we have enough time, good news, I know that my wife was at Taylor Swift last night. She is on a plane, so she is not watching. So I will give away my how to stay married and happy AI secret here if we have enough time at the end. So
I was gonna say, thank you, Taylor Swift. Thank you.
That's right. That's right. I want to start by kind of diving into the mistakes that agents make. And this could be a few different ways. One of the mistakes that agents often make, especially when you're online looking at content or thinking about where to start, the thing that I like to reframe the thought around is that AI is not ChatGPT. ChatGPT just so happens to be the on-ramp for artificial intelligence for most of society. And it'd be the equivalent of saying Facebook is the internet. ChatGPT is about the equivalent of that for AI. At the end of the day, AI is typically just a large language model of patterns organized in a user interface, and how the developer, how the team orchestrates that large language model dictates the user interface or dictates the experience. And so there are things that you can do as a real estate agent in ChatGPT, but it will not change the overall outcome of your business without the right user interface. And so we actually won't talk about any ChatGPT related solutions, because that's kind of a 101 to I find the mistakes that real estate agents make is they are still investing and spending money by hiring people to do jobs that a computer could do on their behalf. And
Mm,
what agents end up with is they end up with inaccurate inconsistencies. If
wow.
you're paying someone to do something that you could offload to a machine, you'll get better consistency, better data, and better accuracy. And so finding a solution and then reallocating capital is perfect right now, where right now the average agent through the first 7 months in America has sold 5.28 homes. I've just under 5.5 houses right now would be the annualized trajectory for agents. So agents need money. And you know, I put in here that AI is not the goobacks, and this is for my South Park people, Greg. I don't know if you remember, but there was that South Park episode where the people from the future, the goobacks, they like came to America and they were going to take all the jobs,
That's
and they
awesome.
were going to cause widespread unemployment. And the people of South Park had to like cover themselves in excrement and save themselves and their job. Good news, you don't have to do that with AI. There were fax machines, right? At one point, we've had people who sat on elevators and pressed buttons until those were automated. People used to drive cars and taxis. There still are limo drivers. AI
Mm.
is going to just play musical chairs with how we earn income. It's not going to replace all the jobs that we think of today. And then last two here is thinking about AI from point to point, as in how do I solve for something simple, like how do I rewrite my listing descriptions? Okay, that's just point to point. What you want to think of is the concentric, zoomed out version of the entire workflow and the entire journey of the consumer experience, and then start to craft solutions from there.
Mm.
And then understanding that AI doesn't have feelings. It's just the smartest person that you could ask to do a job.
And Eric, as you're mentioning all this, it makes me chuckle because when you're breaking it down in process, it's easy to tear something apart and say that's not it, that's not how you're supposed to do it. You know, looking at it from shaking up the industry, and I'm looking at it from a real estate professional standpoint, as I know you are. How does this affect me? What does this mean to me, and how can I grow and scale? To your title here, you know, 7 hacks that are guaranteed to give you 6 hours of time back and increase productivity and production. I know that you're not just tearing this apart, you're going to show us. And that's the good thing. So everybody hang in there. You know, when you mentioned Goobacks, I was thinking about Jake. If there was some way Jake could just pop up a visual as you were explaining that, would be awesome.
Jake's not a real person, Greg. We've come to this realization off camera.
He is. He is. I've got to vouch for him. He's not AI. He's not a bot. Love you, Jake. Love you. So let's dive into it, Eric.
Okay.
Let's peel back the onion. Let's go down that road.
Perfect. So I thought we would kind of work into a few solutions here, and starting with the worst invention in human history, and that was the invention 1971 was when the first email was sent, and everything has really just gone downhill from there, Greg. You know, lawyers per capita and like the rate of incarceration and the consumption of chicken has all tripled since 1971. And so we are worse off as a result. And yet I wanted to take back control of email. In fact, I ran a report the other day on mine. I get 300% more email than the average email user.
Wow.
And it's estimates that 15 hours of my week is consumed by email.
Unreal.
And so if you think about the number one way that I could take back control of my schedule is by taking control of the email that I receive.
Mm.
And so there's a few different ways to do this. I think of it as there's typically three solutions and then three common fears when I talk about automating email. And
Okay.
the three fears are that AI will say the wrong thing, that it will say the wrong way, and that I'll lose my privacy.
Hmm.
Okay, and so everyone has the same concerns, and they're that AI will say the wrong thing, say it the wrong way, or I'll give up all my privacy. And so I look at it and go, okay, well then what is the solution? If I want 15 hours of my time back, I
Hmm.
have a choice to make. Either I have a secretary or I am one.
Hmm.
And so I could allocate 15 hours of my week to read and respond to email. I could hire someone to read and respond to my emails, or I could implement an AI solution to read and respond to emails.
Love it.
And if I hire someone, they're likely going to say the wrong things, say it the wrong way, and I'm going to lose my privacy. And at the end of the day, if I hire someone to read my email and I lose my privacy, it may end up, on Twitter, or they might send it to an ex-girlfriend or something. So the risk with AI working my email is less than hiring someone else to manage my email. And so I look at the
Makes
three
sense.
solutions, Greg, as you can have email summarized, you can have email basically write or rewrite your responses, and then you can have the full self-driving mode of email.
Wow.
Okay, so there are a couple of different options depending on what your temperament is.
Hmm.
And then here are like four of the solutions that if you want kind of that baby bear, that middle of the road option,
Hmm.
you can have them written and drafted with these four tools. I'm personally I'm a bigger fan of Superflows of the four choices, but
Okay.
um, one of our AI guys at Livian likes Spark better, so we can argue over that. But these
Awesome.
are easy, free applications that you can implement right away.
Hmm.
The reason I like Superflows better though is because it will summarize your email without having to open it.
Okay. I was going to ask you why you have that over Spark, but okay.
Yeah, it'll summarize. And so the mobile app, Spark has a mobile app,
Hmm.
which is one thing that a lot of people like. Now, for anyone who has a workspace account with Google, um, you could set up their beta test version to lab their new Gmail integration for AI writing and responses. I will tell you though, it's not nearly as good as some other solutions, but it's a matter of time before Google improves it, of course. So
Okay, so Eric, I want to jump in here, and I appreciate the resources into here as you're mentioning, and there's
yeah,
going to be downloadable at the end for sure. I want to state it as to the audiences out there thinking as they're going through this. How accurate do you feel that it is coming from this technology? Whether it's Spark or Superflow,
yeah,
in comparison to you yourself. I agree with you. If you're hiring an assistant, somebody who's going to do that on your behalf, they're never going to be like you. They're never going to be able to speak and articulate
yeah.
and the same principle. How do you feel in close nature to using something like this? Because obviously you use it every day. You have massive amounts of emails getting sent out, like you said, 300% more than average. What are your thoughts on that? Anybody who's tuning in thinking, okay, maybe I do want to save that time using this. What's
Yeah.
your perspective, Eric?
So I think of it a few different ways. It's like when you take your kids bowling, you put up the bumpers, or even yourself, Greg. Like when you're going bowling, you put the bumpers in so you don't roll
There's
the
no
gutter.
shame in that game. Come on.
That's right. So the like um, many of them have that approach where you kind of select the tonality and you select the response,
Okay.
whether you want it to be professional, whether you want it to be short, mid, long response. Another reason why I like Superflow is just because you can pre-tune it and kind of lock it in. It will read your previous email responses, and then it will craft your trends and your prompt for how you reply to emails.
Hmm.
And it will then steer its responses based on the way that you have historically replied to emails. So, for
Wow.
instance, I know that I average 88 words per email response. I just so happened to look at it this morning, and that I have no salutation and typically no greeting.
Hmm.
And so inside of that inside of the way that it's programmed, it will not say thank you or not say hello, how are you, and waste time. So it knows that succinct, conversational, and typically direct to the point with short responses is my preferred method of responding. I would say it's probably an 85% accurate or so.
Okay. Yeah. And again, to a lot of the emails that are out there, I think ultimately there's pick and choose and there's give and take depending on, just because you're setting up this technology doesn't mean that you can't go in there as you traditionally do and send emails and respond on behalf. There's just things that you're looking at for automation and
Yeah.
leverage and accuracy using technology, using AI, as you're stating here. These are hacks, right? These are ways to get your time back, to increase production, time back in your day. So this is awesome so far, Eric. Love it for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you can have them, like I said, full self-driving mode. You could have them auto hit your inbox and then go to a third party, large language model to draft and then send once you give it the go ahead. So a lot of
Okay.
different speeds based on temperament and how you look at it. If you're anything like me, the next way that I waste a ton of money or a ton of time, I should say, or spend a ton of my time is in meetings, right? And I know that everyone's probably already talked about meeting assistants. I totally get that, right? But if not, having AI attend meetings on your behalf, or if you own a team or you're an entrepreneur, having one person attend a meeting with an AI bot would be far more effective use of time most of the time than having several people within your company show up for a meeting,
Mm,
especially if it's informational. With AI meeting assistants, you save time, it increases accuracy and increases productivity. Now,
mm,
there's for most of the conversations that I'm hearing around AI meeting assistants, that's where it stops. They
yeah.
focus on it saves you time, it improves productivity. Got it. Now, the way to think about it instead, Greg, is that you want to have a plan of action after a meeting, and you want to automate the handoff component of all of your meetings so that whatever next steps are required get distributed to the organization. And so I just thought I would share. Here's a quick screen grab of what our automated meeting assistant creates from a next steps or from an action plan backlog that then gets assigned to whoever the appropriate person is internally as a company. And so sometimes it is accurate, and then sometimes it kind of struggles here. In fact, I think there was one of them. Oh, yeah, stay up to date with adorable puppies here at the bottom, right? Like that's great advice, but
I
someone
think
must.
I was in that meeting, Eric. I think that was
You
me.
were, you were, right? You were in there. You need to stay up to date with adorable puppies, Greg. And so sometimes it will capture things from a meeting that you don't necessarily want it to take action on. However, it's certainly way more effective than losing next steps in translation, or than having to rely on one or two people who misinterpret the wrong thing during a meeting or can't keep up with the action. You also have the ability, of course, then to have transcripts and in a file that houses all your transcripts. So if for some reason you become really famous and you want to write your biography, all your meeting transcripts would be saved inside of meeting assistants. We've used any and every one of them, I think, at this point.
Okay.
Um, I'm a fan typically of read.ai or Fireflies.
Okay.
We end up actually using both, but
And Eric, I love this example for meetings, and there's so many real estate professionals that are on there, that have small, medium, and or mega large teams or brokerages, and sometimes we can be meeting to death. Ultimately, you got to have those planning sessions, masterminds. But to me, more importantly than even doing that is what your takeaways are in action items and task lists. Now, unless if you're taking notes yourself or you have a physical assistant, to your point, adding one of these softwares, Read AI, as such, that's going to process this so that you can actually walk away from that meeting knowing what to do next, those action items for you, for your team. Now, is this one of those things where it mentioned this is for digital meetings? Is it an opportunity to say, hey, even if you have a physical meeting with your team, to pull up this software and just notate and record even if everybody's physically in the room and they just hear everybody? What's the best practices behind
Yeah.
utilizing this? If
Well,
anybody,
that's a great question. And you're actually leading me into another application here, funny enough, but you can really look at it a couple of different ways. If I'm a coach, for instance, if I'm a real estate coach, if I'm a leader in real estate and I'm doing a one-on-one with one of my people, you can have it measure your talk time. You can
mm,
have it measure the effectiveness of the words that you choose. You know, measure how often you use filler words, whether you're HR compliant,
mm,
whether you've hurt someone's feelings. There's a lot of different ways that you could utilize those tools, whether you're on an active digital meeting like Zoom or having one in person. Because
mhm,
remember, it's just capturing your audio, and it will capture video as well, but it's capturing your audio and then it's analyzing the transcript
mm.
based on the conversation. And so there's a ton of application. You can use it to give your listing presentation
Wow.
and, and receive feedback based on the level of attention that you receive.
Mm,
And so, kind of here's a real world example of how we've used that same technology is, um, you know, if I were out selling real estate full time today, one of the ways that I would improve customer experience and minimize the amount of time it takes to do that
mm,
is I would go on all consultations, have those consultations transcribed,
mm.
and then have those consultations summarized and put into action plans.
Wow.
And so here's an example of a listing presentation that I went on, probably the one and only I've been on this year. And I had my phone with me, transcribed the listing presentation, transcribed any of the commitments and promises, and then schedule that I made to the consumer. Took that transcription back, put it into the notes, loaded it into the CRM, got the appropriate people tagged and assigned,
Mm,
and our listing director was able to handle this with way more clarity and ease than she ever would have if I had to have a call with her and then had to trend and figure out what chicken scratch I made of my notes and how I was going to hand off the next steps and promises. Most of the time, what I found is that in my own experiences, I would forget the commitments that I made to the consumer. I
mm.
wouldn't necessarily communicate them to the operations team, and that
Wow.
leads to inferior service. No longer have to have that take place by
Mm.
utilizing AI to put together an action plan and to do a summary.
Eric, I love that. And again, the takeaways to me are just maximizing every meeting and opportunity with the team, with training, with educating into that realm, but then also from a practitioner standpoint to give feedback and improvement to how you communicate with the consumer, right? Buyer, seller, or team professional. But then looking at it for recommunication to the checklist formula for the actual staff, right? So that nothing is dropping. I'm the worst at this when it comes to chicken scratch. If I write something down and I hand it to somebody, like, what is that? I mean, I can barely read my writing
Yeah.
sometimes because I'm writing so fast. So it's just nice to have that aspect. But again, this is technology that these are things you're doing anyway. So adding these pieces of tech to make it more productive, to give you back time, to increase accuracy. This is what this is all about for a true real estate professional looking to scale to take to that next level.
And if
Where
I'm an individual agent, Greg, I would be doing all of my presentations and consultations. And I wish that in 2015 I had documented a lot of the things that I did that made me a successful real estate agent. Because trying to reflect on all of those micro behaviors and subtle success habits was really difficult after the fact. If I
Wow.
had just been able to record myself, transcribe it, get insights into that, it would have been far more effective. In
Mm,
fact, as a total side note, Gary Keller will tell you that one of the that when he went and expanded initially prior to becoming the largest real estate company in the world was when they first expanded, he failed the first 4 times.
wow.
It wasn't until he hired a videographer to follow him around every day and document what he did for an entire year that
Mm,
they were able to understand the blind spots that Gary had, that made him successful. You
mm,
no longer have to pay the six-figure salary to someone to document it. when you have the documentation right in your pocket with a phone,
Mm,
and you have AI in order to help you compile that documentation.
love it. Huge stuff, Eric. Let's keep rolling. You're on a roll, man. This is
Cool.
great for sure.
So one of the things that I would do that we utilize to save time as well is automating review responses. Right.
Mm,
And so we measure the success of a transaction by 3 R's, and those are repeat business, referrals, and reviews. And one of the ways that I want to measure our success, of course, is by looking at reviews. What I don't want to do, however, is spend my time going on and individually replying to every single response. And I don't
mhm.
want to pay to have to do it either. So for about a nickel a month, we've automated the response to consumer reviews, and included the language here as to like how we've prompted AI to reply to our reviews.
Okay, so Eric, I want to pause you right there for a second because
Yeah.
anybody who's resetting themselves for learning in this information, this is massive. I've taught this for so many years of how important it is. It doesn't matter what we say, but the end user. It matters what they say, their experiences and their journey utilizing our brand, product, or service. Ultimately, as somebody is reviewing and or looking up, if you're that brand, product, or service to utilize, to buy, to sell, to join a team, they're going to look at peer recommendations, right? That's social proof. And one of the biggest things that you can do to increase your search engine optimization organically and show people that you're actually there and caring is responding to every single review, good, bad, or indifferent. So you're telling me that this particular aspect is set up for a nickel a month, and it's hitting it from all those areas. Is there any restrictions? What sites does it do this to? Walk me through that a little bit. Oh, Eric, you're muted, or I
Oops.
lost you.
Don't call Sundar Pichai and tell him at Google that we've got it set up. I don't actually know if there are restrictions on that note. So it's just an API integration with, once a new review comes in,
Okay.
then that gets triggered to create that response. At the
Okay.
end of the day, I go back to this. If I can pay someone in a far, far remote land in order to respond to the reviews, I can likely get AI to do the job.
Wow. Good analogy. Love that.
And so thinking about it that way, kind of we reverse engineers the concept of replying to those reviews, right? And
Mm,
there's no reason why I wouldn't also configure our request the same way, which is
mm,
we should be automating the text, emails, and asks of the consumer
mhm.
by utilizing AI to do that as much as possible.
Well said. I think that systematizing nature is crucial, and peer recommendations or reviews are everything. It truly is a lifeblood, for business. I do that with Real Estate Titans in a workflow. So anybody who's been on the show, then there's an automated workflow to say, hey, if you had a great experience, please, take a
Yeah.
look at Apple Podcasts, give us a review, because the importance of that, the internal algorithms are really going to boost that up. And it shows just face forward credibility. So that's huge, Eric. I love it. This is all great stuff. What do we got next here? This is
So,
incredible.
regardless of what role you're in as a real estate agent, at the end of the day, the odds are you're going to need to hire, whether you're hiring a transaction coordinator, whether you're hiring, whether even if that's an outsourced third-party transaction coordinator that is not sitting next to you every day, you're going to need to hire. And so one of the things that I've found in order to save time and increase the effectiveness of the perspective that we get from making hires is to actually take all of our notes and all of the conversations and insights we get into a candidate, and
Mm.
then to load that into one of the AI products, and then start asking questions about why I shouldn't hire someone.
Ooh. I
It,
got to hear more about this, Eric. I know everybody.
so
Okay, so the
it's
thing, we hire people, right? In the business of real estate, there's so many physical bodies that are there for doing tasks. So this in particular is hiring the right talent. How are you using AI to kind of pre-scrub or pre-qualify? This is
there's
awesome.
yeah, there's a few different ways that you could do it. So you could go into a meeting and have all of that transcribed, whether you're doing your interview digitally or whether you're doing it in person.
Mhm.
Google Recorder would transcribe the audio for you, taking all of the conversation that takes place during that interview and then ingesting it into a large language model, and basically having dialogue back and forth with that LLM would be effective.
Mm.
In this particular example, I actually didn't attend the meeting. At Keller Williams, we've got career visioning as a preferred recruiting and recommended method for hiring, and so I actually had the team do a peer interview,
Mm.
took the notes from the agents who interviewed another agent, ingested the notes into in this case it was Anthropic's model,
Mm.
and um, and then basically said, "Tell me why I should not hire this person."
Wow.
and
Huh.
and this agent, funny enough, we did bring the agent on. Kristen is not her name. I've changed it for the sake of this slide.
Yeah.
But but the interesting thing is, great person, great agent. She left within a matter of probably a week and a half,
Wow.
and it forecasted those two reasons in advance, which were that three young kids, wasn't sure that she could fully commit to the time that was required,
Mm.
wasn't sure that the mindset aligned up with someone who would actually be willing to dedicate the consistency from a time standpoint every
Wow.
day. So, it says mindset is seems attracted to the freedom and flexibility of real estate, but may not fully appreciate the hustle required. Funny
Mm.
enough, we got our three contracts in the first 10 days, and that was way too much,
Mm.
based on the person's competitiveness and willingness to have that much of a workload right away.
Unreal. Unreal.
So,
And you think about it from an HR director, as you mentioned here in the slide standpoint. I mean, there's so much to analyze and to really spit out. And to me, it's an unbiased entity,
yep,
right? It's not looking at somebody for all the ways that humans do, and then looking at the logical side and piece to it. It's all logic. It's just data. Wow,
yeah.
this is fascinating.
Well, I mean, and Greg, when you think about it, with a 56% divorce rate, people are amazing at justifying why they should commit to saying yes instead of saying no. And so I think
Yeah.
about flipping the script and say, why should I not hire someone instead of why should I hire them?
Oof.
Because real
Great.
estate agents like people,
Mhm.
and it's easier to justify liking someone and hiring them than it is to disqualifying them, because that means more work.
Wow, huge. Love this stuff. And same thing, we're gonna have resources. Eric's got the downloadable. We'll have the link in the comments so everybody can look at all these resources. We got a lot of links, takeaways, things like that. We're blazing through this. So no sick days.
Yeah.
Let's look at this here.
Yeah, gosh,
What's the
I
next
sound
one?
like I sound like John D. Rockefeller or Andrew Carnegie or something. I'm just like just running a sweatshop over here in Indiana. No, the reality is that I actually want my agents to spend times doing the things that they enjoy most.
Mm,
Very rarely do I find that, really only sociopaths love to follow up with cold strangers until they finally respond months later. And so, as a real estate agent and a real estate business owner, what I realize is the way that I can create consistency and predictable results is by offloading communication
mm,
to AI that used to be fully reliant on real estate agents.
mm.
Greg, I wish that when I was selling real estate full time, that all of these resources existed. Because if I
Right.
would have had, a bot that was more intelligent than me, which isn't difficult, but if I had a bot more intelligent than me responding to my messages, I think I could have sold far more real estate than I did.
No, no.
And so right now, we've got it configured as kind of a hybrid model
Mhm.
where, at Livian we have a division, a proprietary division within the company, called Canary, that's run by some of the best ISAs in the country, and they combine what currently is AI, machine learning, and then ISA oversight
Wow.
to monitor the workflow and conversations and scripting to improve that. And so just posted an example that we got that came in on Friday, a
Mm.
lead that had gone unresponsive. This lead was a year and a half old. We enabled AI to have communication with it, set up searches,
Mm.
mean, then the prospect says, you know what, we put our move and search on hold. Great, we'll let the agent know. Then the consumer takes some behavior, some action. They're searching for homes online,
Mm,
triggering a new response, triggering two-way communication between AI and the consumer based on the consumer's behavior.
wow.
And and so the reality of it is, when you think about the choke points of a real estate transaction, one of the
Mhm.
biggest choke points of a transaction is communication. It's that
Wow.
lead follow-up, that lead nurturing. And then at a certain point in time, the agents ride the roller coaster. And part of the roller coaster when you're at the top is you run out of time to manage all of the things that need to be done, or all the people that want things from you. And so offloading that communication and follow-up is one of the most effective ways to increase conversion for real estate agents.
Wow. I love that you're mentioning this, Eric, because there's so much truth to the fortune and the follow up sort of scenario. And this is no disrespect to entrepreneurs or real estate professionals, but customarily some of the worst at follow up. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, of course.
there's so many moving parts and pieces in a given day as an entrepreneur or a real estate professional that, if it's not right, ready to go then and there, straight in front of you, that things get fallen by the wayside. And there's CRMs and there's tools and there's leverage points into that. But I love that you mentioned the choke point. From any scale or any level, and the utilizing AI to really foster that relationship and continually grow that is massive. And again,
Yeah.
this, to my perspective and opinion, this technology is not to replace any given occupation or individual. All it's doing is leveraging your knowledge and your time with technology, making you stronger, more powerful, faster, smoother for the end user. I think the people that are adopting these technologies are going to have a massive advantage over everybody who's just got their heads in the sand saying, oh, well, it's going to be the same. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the most
That's
ridiculous
my favorite.
statement, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, I look at it and say it's the equivalent of if you don't think the technology will increase the number of closings that each agent or the agents who adapt and innovate can do, then just start signing all your contracts in pen and faxing them over. Because the
There we go.
reality of it is that
Love it.
today agents sell far more homes annually than they did 20 years ago. And by that, I mean the top 1% of real estate agents and teams sell far more houses than they were able to what was
Wow.
20 years ago.
Mm,
But the average agent stays the same. The middle of the pack, the typical agent has not improved their annualized closing rate, but those at the 1% have.
mm, unreal.
And largely it's a technology, and it's about shaving off those choke points in the transaction.
Mm,
And so one of the things that I hated almost as much as email is inspections. In fact, 2020 through 22, when no one was doing inspection responses, was like two of the best years in real estate. And now some markets have gone back to inspection responses. And so when you think about one of the ways that there's a lot of time friction in the process, I've asked agents and I get responses anywhere from about an hour and a half to 4 hours on average for
mm,
how long it takes to go through the entire inspection, response, and repair and estimate phase of the transaction. Somewhere between an hour and a half and 4 is kind of the range that I continue to hear.
mm.
My wife and I were able to get that down to 5 minutes and 12 seconds on a Friday night. That's
Wow.
how exciting we are, Greg. On a Friday night, we're doing inspection responses with AI.
Boy,
But
that's a night of someone's life right
That's
there. It's
right. That's
beautiful.
right. So I think that this is, will it help you sell more houses? No. Will it free you up time to watch reruns of Friends? Absolutely.
Sure.
And so it saves time to help more people
Mm,
without having to coordinate all the contractors that make up an inspection repair estimate.
mm.
And same thing goes with the responses.
Wow, huge. And again, all these details are from looking at it from a very direct standpoint, Eric. And this is why I love your perspective on AI and technology, because you're looking at it, hey, I'm in here, my team's in here, we're in the trenches every day, seeing what needs to be done and how can it be more efficiently taken care of, utilizing technology, leveraging, but again, not watering ourselves down or taking us away from the highest and best uses of time. Quite the opposite.
Yeah.
I love your approach to this. There's not a lot of people out there that really have that perspective, so it makes you very unique.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, as a team owner, Greg, my agents hire me to deliver an improvement to their life and to their income. And so I wake up and I have to uphold my half of that agreement. And, so I look at it and go, I have to help them sell more real estate and I have to help them get more time back so that
Mhm.
they can go see Taylor Swift. Right. And so the way that we can do that is by implementing solutions that include machine learning and AI in a way that saves agents time.
So we've got and before you keep moving forward, and Sharon, thank you so much for jumping in here, Eric. So this one is, so you upload it, and
Yeah.
essentially it reviews. Is that correct? The repairs with
So
repairs.
yeah, so there's a few different ways to do this. A lot of it is going to be contingent upon your inspector. So one of the things that we have done is we went to our inspector and said, "Hey, you have to change your software. We love you. We'd like to continue to work with you, but you need to change the software that you use in order to generate reports because we will only use one of two report generation companies, and so that we can uh, basically utilize the fastest, most efficient way to generate the inspection response. And once we generate an inspection response, then we can have the repair estimate sent off to be reviewed and estimated by AI within 10 minutes. I can get those specific companies to Sharon.
That'd be fantastic. And again, having information in the resource. Great question, Sharon. Thank you so much. And anybody, if you got any thoughts or questions, always jump in here. I know for the sake of time, Eric, because we've been just jumping through this rapid fire sort of scenario, we got to keep moving forward here. So hate to push it along, but what's the next one? I guess this is number 7
Oh,
in
we got
turn.
through
Where are we
7,
at?
I think. I hope so.
Oh, got it. Yes, yes, yes. No,
Okay.
no, you're absolutely right.
Well, AI can count for us if not, but we can check
Yeah,
the
I was
transcript.
gonna say, are the notes being taken here?
I think so.
Where's the follow up here?
Um,
So
so yeah, at the end of the day, I look at it and say, if the only thing that a listener did was implement a solution to their email,
mm,
they would save, probably 6 hours a week. In my case, it said it would be 15. Hopefully, most people get less email than that. But when you strip it down to all the ways, at a very minimum, it buys back almost an entire workday worth of work for the average real estate agent, and does so for less than $100.
mm. I love that representation. And again, pick and choose what you're tuning into. Everybody, hopefully something stood out as Eric mentioned. Eric, I do want to give everybody just the knowledge there. So you can see the link on the screen here. Jake is also going to put the downloadable. It's a free downloadable. It's got a massive resource for everybody to tune in. It goes over so much that Eric went to in deeper detail, but then it's got links and everything that you're going to need to really apply this. Again, there's nothing sold involved with it. It's just a resource for lab coat agents, for you tuning in, taking the time to spend with us. Eric, I do want to give you a shout out. In addition, we didn't mention it, but you're also an incredible podcast host. From one podcast host to another, I do want to talk about your show,
Yeah.
Disruptance.
Yeah.
And I know you're on to season 2 now. Very fortunate for myself to be co-hosting that with you. But you have so many episodes that are out there. So let's talk about Disruptance. Again, if you like Eric's representation and presentation, it's more of this man's mind, his thoughts. But let's get your take on it, Eric.
Well,
What's Disruptance all about?
it's like a shot of whiskey and black coffee. Is that what you're trying to say, Greg? I
That's
mean,
it. That's it. Now, are you the whiskey and I'm the black coffee, or is it the other way around?
that's right. I don't know. I'm not sure which. The listener might think I'm the one who's drunk, so I don't know. Um,
So
at the end of the day, you know, the thing that I wish is that, I mentioned it earlier. Is the thing I wish is that I had documented and chronicled so many things in building a business, because it took way too much time to go backwards and try to recreate and figure out what I was doing that worked. And so, the fun part about podcasting is that for me, it really is a guide to myself to consult with later. when I get stuck or when I encounter something in a business that I've already solved for. Because funny enough, no matter how many times we know the solution to problems that show up in business, when we're in the forest, it's really hard to find the solution. And so podcast ends up being just a guidebook to me that we share with listeners, for entrepreneurs and for real estate agents. And if nothing else, they get a look at your handsome face, Greg.
That's the worst case scenario. Gosh, Eric, I mean, I'm just telling you, it's massively important, just to the knowledge that you share out there with the real estate community, and what you've done. It's actually awe-inspiring, and I think that with Disruptance, a new episode drops every Thursday. Again, it's just compelling tactical takeaways. I truly love it. I enjoy our conversations, dialogue. I know everybody out there at Lab Coat Agents will as well. I'm going to actually put the link for the podcast in there as well. So everybody, thank you so much for your time and attention at another incredible live webinar here with Lab Coat Agents. Don't forget to give us comments, thought processes, any takeaways that really stand out to you. Please put in the comments, whether you're watching this live with us now or after the fact onto YouTube. Reach out to Eric if you have any thoughts or questions. Take a look at that downloadable link, very specific for all the resources that's there. And Eric, I can't thank you enough, my friend. It was an honor.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you.
All right, everybody, take care. We'll catch you on the next live webinar here with Lab Coat Agents. See you soon.
Thanks.